Back on the record at 2:30 p.m.
Okay, so Mr. Gillis, I'd like to hand you Exhibit 58. Okay, here we go. So this is a PowerPoint, Bates numbered MMK-T1 463862. And the title is Controlled Substance Quota and Suspicious Order Monitoring Overview. Mr. Gillis, are you familiar with this PowerPoint?
No.
Okay. Are you familiar with the quota system and Mallinckrodt's, I guess, application process for that system?
I reviewed it for my testimony yesterday.
Okay. So if you turn to page 5, if you could review that slide for me.
Okay.
Okay. And is this an accurate description of the current system in place at Mallinckrodt regarding quotas?
To the best of my understanding.
Okay. And then if you turn the page for the manufacturing quota details. And that, well, actually, I mean, it may speed things up to, my questions on this PowerPoint relate to slides 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, up to page 12. And the question is, you know, based on your understanding, is this an accurate description and depiction of the quota system? And so, I think rather than go through and ask you sort of line by line, if to the degree this is not an accurate description of the quota system, could you please identify for me the statements that you believe are inaccurate?
Okay. As I continue reading this, is
Sure.
9 applicable? Because I'm struggling to see the names in there and stuff. So
No, I mean,
Okay.
that's just a current DEA org chart in 2011,
Okay.
so I suspect it may have changed.
All right. I'm sorry, what was the end page again?
Page 12.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So have you had a chance to review those slides on pages 5 through
Yes.
12? So with the exception of page 9, which is the org chart, did you identify any statements or sections that you believe are inaccurate?
So 9 and 11 were the org charts that
Okay,
I
sure.
had a
9 and 11.
problem. But the rest of it, from my understanding, appears accurate.
Okay. Then if you could turn to slide 13, directing your attention to the quantity requested. You'll see that oxycodone is the highest quantity requested at 16,400, followed by hydrocodone at 15,700, and then methadone at 9,345. Do you see that, sir?
And the hydrocodone, 15,700?
Yes.
Okay, I may have misunderstood. Okay, so I see the oxy, the hydrocodone, and the methadone. Yes.
So oxycodone is the largest quantity requested. Is that correct?
According to this document.
Okay. And in terms of sort of a trend over time, has that historically been the case? Meaning Mallinckrodt's largest request is for oxycodone?
I have no idea.
Okay. For the time period that you've been with Mallinckrodt, so from 2012 to 2019, has oxycodone been the largest request in terms of the quota?
I don't know that. I'm not involved in the quota process, so I don't know what those numbers look like.
Okay. And so you don't know if the ranking of oxy, hydro, and then methadone has sort of remained at 1, 2, or 3, or whether it's shifted over time?
Correct. I don't know what that
Okay.
picture looks like.
So you can put that aside. Okay, this is Gillies Exhibit 59. So this is a Bates number of MNKT1 6619631, and my questions relate to the section on supplemental requests, which starts at Bates number 6619638 and goes through 6619640.
Okay.
Okay. So what is a supplemental quota request, sir?
So again, I'm not involved in the quota process, so I don't want to misstate what the supplemental is.
Well, is it your understanding that it is a request that's made throughout the year for increased quota?
We do have the ability to request quota throughout the year.
Okay. And this chart on pages 6619, 638, going through 6619, 640, this is essentially just a tally of the number of times that you have submitted a supplemental increase. Is that accurate?
Objection to form.
For these years, that's what it appears to be.
And so generally, depending on the product, you will request an increase between 1 and 2 or 3 times. Is that fair?
Objection to form.
I think it's going to depend on the year. So,
Well, that was going to be my next question,
Okay.
which is, is the information contained in these charts reflective of Mallinckrodt's historical supplemental quota increase requests, or are they, are they unusual or outliers in terms of the overall pattern?
Objection to form.
so I don't know if they're unusual because I'm not involved in the process of quota to say whether having 1 supplemental request or 2 or even 3 is unusual.
Okay. So you can put that aside. So this is Gillies Exhibit 60. Bates number is M&K T1 481 3611. You should read as much of this document as you feel you need to, but my questions are going to relate to the last sentence of each paragraph, which discusses a financial impact.
Okay.
So there is a reference in this document to quota shortages. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, what is a quota shortage?
So, in my understanding, DEA sets the quota for a particular product, and then requests for quota come in. We do one for manufacturing and one for procurement, and then the DEA fills those. And if you don't get the requested amount that you asked for, there would be a shortage. That's my understanding.
Okay. And that shortage has a financial impact on Mallinckrodt, correct?
Based on what's in this document, if they can't meet customer demands.
So, you know, the inability or the DEA's decision not to increase Mallinckrodt's quota will cost Mallinckrodt money.
Objection to
Is that fair?
I don't. I'm comfortable the way you phrase that question. It's not increase it, but not provide us what we're asking for from the quota.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
And the result of that, though, is that it will cost Mallinckrodt money.
Objection to form.
That's what this document indicates.
Okay. And so Mallinckrodt has a financial incentive to seek to increase or to seek to maximize its quota, does it not?
Objection to form.
According to this document, based on customer demands, which is how the quota is going to be prepared.
Okay. Now, you indicated that the quota is based on customer demand, or the quota request is based on customer demand. Is that accurate?
I believe that was the terminology used in here,
Okay.
but that's what I said.
Do you know if data from the SOM program is ever used to assess, well, strike that. Do you know if data from Mallinckrodt's SOM program plays a role in the quota requests that Mallinckrodt submits to the DEA?
Objection to form.
I'm not involved in the quota process, so I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. Well, one follow-up question. Who is involved in the quota process?
Karen Harper.
And has she ever asked you for any SOM information for use in the quota process?
No.
So this is Gillies Exhibit 61. It bears the Bates number 6056192. And this document essentially lays out two formulas for use in connection with the quota for hydromorphone. Or at least that's my understanding. Mr. Gillies, do you have any knowledge of the formulas that are used by Mallinckrodt to determine how much quota to request?
I do not.
Okay, so in that case, we put that document aside. So this is Gillies number exhibit 62. This is an email chain from Margaret Keating to Jennifer Bust, CC and Karen Harper. I believe I believe you know who Jennifer is. It Bust or Bust?
Bust.
Bust. What was her responsibility at Mallinckrodt?
She was the SOM analyst.
Okay. And my questions relate to the top 3 emails. So the middle one is from Margaret Keating to Jennifer Bust and Karen. Do you know who Margaret Keating is?
I do not.
Okay. She writes to Jennifer, "Thank you very much. I have another question if you don't mind. Have you seen a trend of hydromorphone being prescribed instead of the oxycodone?" Margaret. Jennifer's response is, "Margaret, the short answer is no. While we don't track hydromorphone the same way as oxycodone from an SOM perspective, we have not seen any increases in trends which would warrant concern." What does she mean by we don't track hydromorphone the same way as oxycodone from an SOM perspective?
I don't know what Jen's referring to there.
Is it your understanding from an SOM perspective that you would track hydromorphone the same way as oxycodone?
Objection to form.
No.
Okay, so what are the differences?
Well, in our SOM program, we have the tiers, and in that first tier, for the big 3 distributors and HD Smith, it was Oxy 15s and Oxy 30s. And then tier 2 were, and this is my understanding, and tier 2 is the other distributors, all of their products, and then the big 3 and HD Smith's other products.
Okay. And what was the reason for tracking hydromorphone differently than the way you would track oxycodone? What was the basis for doing so?
Objection to form.
So it's my belief that the Oxy 15s and Oxy 30s were more subject to diversion.
So this is Gillies exhibit 63. So this is an email and attachment. The email chain is from Derek Naden and J. Craig Burton. Do you know who Derek Naden is?
I do.
Who is he?
He's part of our governmental affairs department.
Okay. And who is Craig Burton?
Not familiar with that name.
Okay. Now, if you turn to the attachments, starting on Bates number 8449630, these appear to be notes of meetings with either senators or representatives and their staff. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And you're identified in some but not all of these minutes. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And the meetings that you're involved with appear to occur on September 4th and September 5th. Well, why don't you take a minute to quickly review these notes?
Okay.
So these are minutes of meetings on September 4th and September 5th. Do you recall these meetings?
I do.
Okay, what do you recall about them?
First of all, they were the staffers of these elected officials. We were meeting with them to tell them about Mallinckrodt's efforts in their locations. Looks like the New York officials because of our Hobart facility, and the Missouri officials because of our presence in the St. Louis area.
And when you say Mallinckrodt's efforts, efforts in what regard?
So from my effort, I was talking about Mallinckrodt's efforts in our support of law enforcement through our placebo program, through our program with providing pill take-back boxes, and other efforts that we had ongoing in support of law enforcement.
And are these what you could characterize as anti-diversion efforts?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how the senators or do you know how the staff members for the senators and representatives were selected? We'll strike that. Do you know how the offices? Do you know how you selected which offices to meet with?
So, again, I believe the offices were selected by our governmental affairs, and it had to do with the New York politicians were selected because we have our Hobart facility in New York, and the Missouri senator his office was selected because we have our production facility and our offices in the St. Louis area.
And what was the purpose of these meetings?
I think just to educate them on what Mallinckrodt was doing. Reminding them that we did have manufacturing facilities and personnel in their territories, and I'm pretty sure we offered them the opportunity to come and inspect the facilities if they would like to. Answered any questions that they might have had.
So if you turn to the first page of this document, Bates number 8449627, the very top email from Craig Burden says, okay, attached is what I'm going to send to Meredith and Peter for inoculation discussion. Any other changes you suggest? Do you know who Meredith is?
She would be, this would be Meredith Fisher, and she was in charge of our communications department.
And who's Peter? Or do you know who Peter is?
I'd have to speculate. Not 100% sure.
Okay. And the reference is to inoculation discussion. Have you ever heard that term before?
No.
Do you know what that means?
I do not.
Okay. If you turn the page to, this is Bates number 8449629, so it's after the chart. Okay, in the middle of the page, there's a paragraph that starts inoculation 1, defined as having briefed on investigation and Hobart inspection. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know what investigation is being referenced there?
I believe they're referring to a DEA investigation.
And what was the nature of that investigation?
I'm not sure.
And what's the Hobart inspection?
So I believe that to be the DEA inspection of our Hobart facility.
Could the investigation be a reference to the investigation that culminated in the Memorandum of Understanding between Mallinckrodt and the DOJ?
Yeah, I don't know that to be the case.
If you look at the chart on the previous page, so Bates number 8449628, you'll see there are columns member, initial meeting, inoculation 1, inoculation 2, and DEA notice. Do you know what the reference to DEA notice is?
I do not.
If you turn to Bates number 8449631, this is a September 4th meeting with the Energy and Commerce Committee majority staff, and the notes indicated that you attended.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. At the very bottom of the last paragraph, it says, while not yet finalized, the next hearing may look closely at how collaboration might be improved at all levels, what makes a good prescriber education program, and how patients need to be considered and, in quotes, unharmed in whatever steps they take. Do you see that?
Yes.
What does the reference to good prescriber education program mean?
So the this was educating prescribers about the this is my understanding. This was educating prescribers about the proper use and of opioid prescribing.
And when it says patients need to be considered and unharmed in whatever steps they take, what does unharmed mean?
So I believed that that the product was available for legitimate patients who needed it. So to stem any diversion to the illicit market, but make sure that the medicine was still available for the patients that needed it. That's my belief of what that was.
And so is this a concern with patient access to opioid products?
That was a concern that patients were voicing. That,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, that they were they weren't being able to get their scripts filled at their pharmacies.
And was this a concern that Mallinckrodt shared?
This was a discussion that came from the committee member that started the discussion, is my recollection.
Did Mallinckrodt ever take any action to attempt to prevent or stop legislative efforts that would limit patient access to opioid products?
Objection to form.
I'm unaware of any legislative action.
Are you aware of any other actions that Mallinckrodt took to prevent or stop legislative efforts that would limit patient access to opioid products?
No.
Objection to form.
Okay. So turning to Bates number 8449637. The fourth paragraph down, it starts with staff was very interested as John Gillies detailed Mallinckrodt's many efforts. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the second to last sentence states, John discussed the DEA inspection and preempted most possible questions in his explanation. Do you know what that's a reference to?
So I discussed with them the inspection that took place by the DEA at our Hobart facility. I believe I was pretty detailed in what I was explaining to them as what took place. And then I would have to speculate on that second half, that because I'd given such a detailed explanation to them, that it limited questions that they possibly had.
And with respect to the DEA inspection that took place at the Hobart facility, did DEA have concerns based on that inspection?
Objection to form.
The DEA did, yes.
And what were their concerns?
They had some record-keeping concerns at that facility. They stated that they had some security concerns. Some of it was misunderstanding in terminology. So as they went through the inspection and even into later time frames, had to further explain some of those differences in interpretations.
And in terms of terminology, can you provide an example? What do you mean by terminology?
Yeah, I can. So there was a security report that stated that a tablet was found in the washroom. So they were concerned that there was a tablet in the washroom that they believed to be the bathroom. And the washroom is our cleaning room. So when they dismantle at the end of a run and clean all the equipment, they take the equipment into the washroom, not a bathroom, but a cleaning room. So if there are any tablets or anything that are stuck up in the equipment and stuff, that's a normal process. Any that would come out in the cleaning process get gathered up and then put back into the total batch record to account for the total production line. So they were concerned that there was a tablet found in the bathroom, or in the washroom that they believed was the bathroom, and wanted to know how a tablet could get into the washroom they thought was a bathroom.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
Do you recall any other meetings that you had with congressional staff during your time at Mallinckrodt?
No.
So these September 4th and 5th meetings are, to the best of your recollection, the only time you've done these briefings for congressional staff people.
That's my understanding.
So why do these briefings after this particular investigation? Because it sounds like you haven't done them after subsequent investigations.
Objection.
Or, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Why do these briefings after this particular inspection? Because it sounds like you haven't done these after other DEA inspections, and I assume the DEA conducts regular inspections of your facilities.
Objection to form.
Yes.
So what? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, they do the regular inspections. I don't know what generated setting up these meetings.
So I think I'm almost done. Why don't we take a short break and I'll see if I have anything else.
We're going off the record at 3:18 p.m. We are back on the record at 3:30 p.m.
Okay, so Mr. Gillis, I just have a few more questions relating to pharmacy review, and then we're done.
Okay.
So Mallinckrodt currently has a pharmacy review program.
Objection to form.
Well, strike that. Let me rephrase it. Mallinckrodt currently reviews pharmacies.
Objection.
We review chargeback information for pharmacies, and then we look at the numbers that the pharmacies are requesting.
Okay. And then based on that chargeback data and that review, do you also audit certain pharmacies?
We can.
Okay. And that program is still in effect. It's in effect currently.
It is.
Objection to form.
When do you know when Mallinckrodt first started auditing pharmacies? Well, strike that. Do you know when Mallinckrodt first started using the chargeback data to review pharmacies?
Objection to form.
It was sometime after, it's my belief, it was sometime after July 2010. So the first time we would have used that, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my timeline here straight. The first time would have been on that Sunrise matter. That was July of 2009. Then as part of its anti-diversion efforts, I'm thinking it was July 2010.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure on that date.
And you indicated that it's the decision whether to audit well, I'm sorry. My previous question was about chargeback. So when did Mallinckrodt start auditing pharmacies based on the chargeback data? Was that also July of 2010?
I don't know that they were using the chargeback data, and I don't know that they went out and started looking at the pharmacies right after that, but it was at some point after that July timeframe.
Okay. July of 2010.
That, again, that's my recollection.
And you indicated that the chargeback data was used to identify pharmacies to audit. Are there other factors that go into the decision on whether or not to audit a pharmacy, other than the chargeback data?
So there's other reasons that a pharmacy could come to my attention, which would be a media report that a law enforcement action took place at a particular pharmacy. I had set up Google keyword searches. I was going into the DEA website and going into their press office and reviewing press releases for anything that appeared to be related to diversion of products from pharmacies, not necessarily Mallinckrodt's products, just diversion of products from pharmacies. I also go out to the U.S. Attorney's Office if I became aware of a particular case to see if there was any data in the U.S. Attorney's Office press releases that might give me more information. Sometimes the U.S. Attorney's Office would have a link to like the indictment or potentially an information, which might contain some information that was useful to me.
Did you ever get data from the distributors as to pharmacies that you should audit?
So we collaborated with the distributors, and you know, we would share information with them on pharmacies that potentially could be of some concern to us, and we'd walk through with them as part of our anti-diversion efforts why we have certain concerns, what we're seeing, and then discuss with them, you know, any due diligence that they had on their customer that might alleviate those concerns.
And did any of the distributors ever come to you and provide you with a list or identify certain pharmacies that they had concerns with?
Objection to form.
So the distributors would share pharmacies with us also.
And you indicated that the pharmacy review program is ongoing.
It is.
Have there been changes over time between when the pharmacy review program first started and its current form?
It's pretty similar. There might have been an enhancement or two after I came on board.
And do you have a rough estimate of how many pharmacies have been blocked as a result of this review program?
Objection to form.
So I know the information was provided to you, but it's my recollection that approximately 264 or so pharmacies have been restricted.
And do you have any sense of the geographic areas that these pharmacies are in?
Not as I sit here right now, but I do know the information was provided to you.
Okay. Did you ever have any concerns about the distributors and whether they were doing an adequate job of reviewing their pharmacies?
Objection to form.
I personally did not. I felt that they were good collaborative partners with us when we'd raise issues with them, and you know, we would talk some things through, and you know, there were a couple instances where you know, they couldn't see some of our concerns, and so I'd advised them that I was going to go do an on-site, and you know, they agreed to go with me, and we went, and you know, I got a feel for this pharmacy. I didn't get the sense that there was diversion going on, but through that process, I did identify a prescriber that was the top prescriber at each of these pharmacies I was going to. And these pharmacies were 50, 60 plus miles apart. So, while I didn't have major problems with these pharmacies I was looking at, I did have a problem that I may have uncovered a prescriber during these pharmacy reviews that should have a further look.
And do you recall roughly what time period this occurred in?
This would have been in fall of 2012 is my recollection.
And what did Mallinckrodt do with this information regarding the prescriber?
Yeah, so when I came back, so the first thing I had was that this prescriber was the top prescriber at each of these pharmacies I went to. So I came back and I asked the analyst to run IMS data to see if there was anything from that. And from that analysis, this prescriber turned out to be a high prescriber of opioids. And I contacted the DEA.
And did they prosecute the prescriber?
So I met with the DEA, shared the information with them. I know they went to the pharmacies, reminded them of their corresponding responsibilities. I don't know what else they discussed with them. And they wouldn't share with me, but I got the impression they wanted him prosecuted, and the matter sat at the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's my understanding. So approximately a year later, ran the numbers for the pharmacies again of the approximate 5, 6, 7 pharmacies that I had looked at. I looked at those pharmacies again to see any changes. And only one of those pharmacies caused me concern. So contacted the distributor, talked it over. They weren't seeing what I was seeing, that they were having any issues, and I told them I was going to go do another on-site. They joined me. And during that time, because from a Mallinckrodt perspective, we'd seen our product to this pharmacy going like this. So that caused me concern, that at one point we were here and now we're here. And in this case, the distributor didn't alleviate my concerns, so I went to do another on-site. And at that point, I'm talking to the pharmacist on my security views. I'll look at their security and other things. And then there was a question that I asked, because the pharmacist is like, I don't know why, you're here. And I said, well, your ordering of Mallinckrodt product is going straight up, and I have to get it. And his explanation was, well, that's easy. We switched manufacturers. And you could see the light start going off over the distributor's head. The reason they hadn't seen any change, because the numbers for them were the same. It was just a flat line to them. But for us, it went like this, so it was a concern. But the overall numbers that the pharmacy had were similar from year to year. It's just that our product and stuff. So, that's just an example of how, I felt the distributor collaborated. We discussed it. When my concerns couldn't be alleviated, we went and did on-sites. And in one instance, the pharmacies didn't cause me a lot of concern, but through those on-sites, I did identify a prescriber who turned out to be a very, very high prescriber.
And did you identify any other, and this was in 2012. After that, did you identify any other prescribers in a similar fashion?
So If we got prescriber information during the time that I had IMS data available, I could run their names to see whether they were high prescribers or not. But at the same time, if I got a prescriber's name, I was doing internet searches to see if there was anything I could see. I would go to the medical board to see if there were any disciplinary records that would cause me concern. I would go out to the HHS OIG website to see if any of these doctors were blocked from doing business with the government. Again, just looking for avenues to give me as full a picture as I could have. Sometimes the prescribers were not high prescribers. Some were prescribers that we're dealing with hospice or cancer patients and stuff. So, but there were some prescribers that caused me some concerns. I shared that with the distributors. That was shared with pharmacies, and the pharmacies would restrict taking prescriptions from those prescribers.
You did this from 2012 to the present. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So this would be, in your view, an example of appropriate due diligence. Is that right?
Objection form.
As I testified before, I don't know what they did, but this is part of the process that I operate under and the questions that I would ask. So when I see a one-line thing about some comments that seem vague or innocuous to me, there's some words in there, I don't know what they mean, I'm going to follow up on those words. And same here. If I get some doctors who are prescribing for a particular pharmacy, I'm going to go out and see what the available information out there is. Sometimes I would find disciplinary actions at the medical board. And depending on what those infractions were, my concerns would go up or down, depending on what I would find. If a particular prescriber was blocked from doing business with the government, government usually has a reason for doing that, and that would cause me concern. And that information would be shared, and we move on. And so from the distributor personnel that I dealt with, I felt them very collaborative, open, and so with the relationships we had, I thought things were good.
And have any of the distributors that you dealt with ever had their licenses revoked?
Not that I've dealt with, at least not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No further questions.
We are going off the record at 3:49 p.m.